My girlfriend looked me in the eyes and said, "Your brother assaulted me last night." I swallowed hard and answered softly, "That's horrible." But what she didn't know, and what would unravel everything, was that my younger brother had been lying in a hospital bed for the past 3 weeks, unable to walk, barely able to sit up, after a catastrophic accident. Her accusation wasn't just cruel. It was impossible. I'm 32, male. And until recently I used to think love was a fortress. With Sarah, 29, I believed we had built something secure, solid, a place no storm could touch. 3 years together, I thought we were strengthening those walls brick by brick. What I didn't see was that she hadn't been reinforcing them. She'd been quietly drilling holes in the foundation, waiting for the right moment to light the fuse and let it all collapse. And when she finally chose her scapegoat, she picked Daniel, my younger brother by 3 years, and my closest companion since childhood. The past month had been a waking nightmare. Daniel had been hit by a drunk driver who blew through a red light, smashing directly into his car, and leaving his body shattered. Both his legs were broken in multiple places, and he'd been fighting through ICU stays, multiple surgeries, and the long road of rehabilitation at St. Mary's Hospital. My daily routine shrank down to a relentless loop. Work, hospital, home, repeat. At first, Sarah had seemed compassionate. She cooked for my parents, told me I needed to lean on her, and would rub my shoulders when I returned, hollowed out from hours sitting beside Daniel's bed. But over time, her warmth cooled into something distant. She began sighing more often, snapping over little things. "I miss you, Leo. It's like this family emergency is swallowing our entire life," she'd complain. I assumed it was the strain of the situation. Maybe it was me neglecting her. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Then came last night. I walked into our apartment after another long visit at the hospital. Daniel had had a particularly rough day. I stayed until he finally dozed off, exhausted from pain and medication. When I opened the door, the apartment was dark except for one lamp. Sarah sat rigid on the couch, streaks of dried tears marking her cheeks. Her whole posture radiated something between terror and despair. My chest tightened. "Sarah, what's wrong? What happened?" I rushed to her side. She flinched from my touch as if my hand was fire. After a long silence, her voice cracked out of her in jagged pieces. "It was Daniel." I froze, every muscle locking. "Daniel? What about him?" Her face crumpled as she clutched herself. "He came here last night. He used the spare key. He said I was pulling you away from your family. He was furious. He pushed me against the wall. He assaulted me." Her body shook with sobs, her hands trembling violently. The picture she painted was grotesque, terrifying. And yet, something inside me, the part of me that knows my brother like I know my own heartbeat, couldn't make the pieces fit. Daniel, who once wept when he accidentally stepped on a butterfly, who apologized for days if he raised his voice, him, assaulting anyone? Impossible. But her performance was convincing. That's what made it dangerous. Monsters rely on doubt. They rely on hesitation. For a brief second, the ground beneath me tilted, trying to convince me her story might be true. Then logic cut through like a lighthouse beam in fog. A system error. A contradiction so glaring it lit up in my mind. My brother had been in a hospital bed for 3 straight weeks. He couldn't walk. He couldn't even leave his ward without assistance. Her story wasn't just unlikely, it was structurally impossible. But instead of erupting in anger, I felt something colder settle into my veins. Clarity. I masked it with gentleness, crouching in front of her, voice soft. "That's horrible," I said. "I'm so sorry. Did he hurt you?" Her eyes flickered with something, triumph maybe? "My wrist," she whispered, clutching it. He grabbed it so hard. "Okay," I said, steady and calm. "We're going to deal with this. The first thing we need to do is go to the police. We'll file a report immediately." There it was, the first crack in her act. I saw panic flash across her face. "Now. I don't know if I can. I'm scared, Leo. I just need you to hold me." "I will," I told her, standing. "But an assault is a crime. This can't wait. Before we do anything else, we need to make a report." And then I twisted the knife. "But before that, we need to tell my parents. If Daniel did this, They deserve to know the truth about their son. Her mask faltered. Your parents? She stammered, suddenly small. Why? Because if what you're saying is true, it changes everything for them. They need to hear it from us. I pulled out my phone and hit call. The ringing filled the tense silence between us. Sarah's face paled. She thought she could trap me with fear, but now she looked like the one trapped. My parents picked up almost immediately. I put the call on speaker. Mom, Dad, I said, my tone heavy, deliberate. Sarah has something she needs to tell you. Something terrible. She didn't know it yet, but her lie was about to shatter. My mother's trembling voice filled the living room. Sarah, sweetheart, are you all right? She asked, her tone heavy with worry. That was all the encouragement Sarah needed to start her performance again. This time her story was smoother, more elaborate. She painted the scene with unsettling detail. What Daniel wore, the stench of alcohol on his breath, the venom in his words. It was a chillingly convincing tale. And she spun it with the finesse of someone who had rehearsed it 100 times. I sat in silence, my chest tightening, realizing I was witnessing the cold-blooded assassination of my brother's reputation. She wasn't just lying. She was staging a character execution with all the precision of a seasoned manipulator. When Sarah finished, silence pressed down like a heavy weight. On the other end of the call, my mother wept openly. My father, who rarely allowed his emotions to surface, kept repeating in disbelief. No, not our Danny. No, no. His voice cracked with each word. A man crushed by what he thought was truth. I waited, allowing the moment to linger. Then I drew a breath and spoke slowly, my voice deliberate. Mom, Dad, I know this is unbearable to hear. I know it sounds unforgivable. It would be. I turned my gaze on Sarah, whose eyes were already glistening with what looked like triumphant vindication. If any of it were true. The words dropped like a bomb. Sarah's face froze, her confident mask faltering. What? What are you talking about, Leo? She stammered. I didn't soften my tone. There's one enormous flaw in your story, Sarah. My brother Daniel has been in St. Mary's Hospital for the last 22 days. He hasn't left his bed in over 3 weeks. Before she could react, I raised my phone and showed her the screen. This is a picture I took just an hour ago. That's Daniel. See the cast on his right leg? That's holding together a shattered tibia and fibula with pins. See the traction rig on his left? That's for his broken femur. He has undergone 2 surgeries. He cannot walk. He cannot stand. He can't even use the bathroom without help. And yet you expect anyone to believe he broke into our apartment to attack you. Her lips parted, but no words came. I pressed forward, relentless now. I have his medical records. I have hospital visitation logs showing only myself and our parents signing in. I have written statements from the nurses who check on him every single hour through the night. So I'll ask you again, Sarah. If Daniel didn't touch you, then who did? The blood drained from her face as the truth caved in on her. She looked at my phone, at the undeniable evidence, and the scaffolding of her lie crumbled. She stuttered. No, you're lying. You're covering for him. Maybe he snuck out. Snuck out? I repeated, my laugh sharp and humorless. A man who can't stand, who's hooked to medical equipment. Are you even listening to yourself? The silence that followed was broken by my father's voice, booming with righteous fury through the speakerphone. No longer broken with grief, it was iron hard. You vile evil girl. How dare you lie about my son, while he lies helpless in a hospital bed. Sarah's composure cracked at last, but not into remorse. She didn't collapse into guilt. She erupted like a cornered animal. She glared at me, hatred blazing in her eyes. You're choosing him over me, she shrieked. You spend all your time there. You forgot about me. I just wanted you to see me, to choose me. The words, twisted and venomous, poisoned the air. She hadn't done this for gain. She had nearly destroyed an innocent man's life out of sheer jealousy, because she couldn't stand not being the center of my attention. I felt nothing for her anymore, just an icy void where love had once lived. It's over, Sarah, I said flatly. Pack your things. You're out of my apartment. You're out of my life. For a moment she just stared at me, hollow and stunned. Her carefully constructed performance had exploded in her face, leaving her standing alone in the wreckage. The hours after her outburst blurred together. She moved around the apartment gathering her belongings, alternating between spitting venom, calling me cruel, heartless, and dissolving into pathetic sobs begging for forgiveness. I didn't answer either way. I stood at the door, cold and silent, waiting. When she finally left, I locked the door behind her and immediately called a locksmith to change the locks. But my family and I knew this wasn't finished. A lie like this couldn't just be dismissed. It was too dangerous, too destructive. The next morning we sat with a lawyer and laid everything out. My photo of Daniel, the hospital records, the nurse's statement, my call logs. The lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. Sarah hadn't just lied. She had made a criminal accusation. What she had committed was defamation, and if she pushed it further, she'd be guilty of filing a false report, which carried serious consequences. His advice was clear. Send her a cease and desist, and be prepared for escalation. And escalate she did. Instead of retreating in shame, Sarah scrambled to salvage her narrative. She changed her story, no longer pointing directly at Daniel but twisting it. She began texting our friends. OMG, you won't believe what happened. Leo kicked me out. I told him his brother hurt me, and now his family is covering it up with fake hospital documents. I'm so scared. I don't know who attacked me, but he looked just like Daniel. And Leo is protecting him. She wasn't giving up the victim role. She was mutating it, painting me as the villain who protected an abuser. Soon my phone was buzzing nonstop. Dude, what's going on with Sarah? Heard you kicked her out. Is she okay? I responded the same way to everyone, calm and factual. Sarah made a false and malicious accusation against my brother, who has been hospitalized and immobile for 3 weeks. The relationship is over. Please respect my privacy. Some people accepted the truth immediately, offering support. Others hesitated, caught between what they thought they knew of Sarah and the monster she had become. A few chose to believe her. Losing them hurt, but it was a wound I had to accept. Better a clean break than letting her poison linger. Then came the call I had been dreading, her parents. I had expected horror, maybe shame, an apology for their daughter's actions. But I was naive. Her mother was the first to come after me, her voice dripping with venom the second I picked up the phone. I don't know what you did to my daughter, she snapped, skipping any greeting. But to have her in this condition is unforgivable. She's a wreck. You and your family, with your money and your army of lawyers, are cornering her like wolves. She told us you're covering up for whoever hurt her. I was stunned. My mind went blank for a moment before the words came out. Are you actually serious? Your daughter admitted she lied. She confessed the whole thing about my brother was fabricated, an invention born of jealousy. What she needs isn't people making excuses for her. She needs a therapist. Before I could say more, her father grabbed the phone, his voice booming with rage. She was under pressure when she said that. You forced her to retract. Don't think we're going to let this slide. We'll see you in court. And then the line went dead. That was the moment I realized this wasn't going to simply fizzle out. They weren't just blindly defending her. They were actively fueling her campaign against me. And they had the resources to make it drag on. A week later, I got the knock at the door. Papers, legal papers, were shoved into my hand. Sarah, under the guidance and funding of her parents, had escalated things. She had filed a police report and secured a temporary restraining order against me. The accusations were wild. She claimed I had threatened her, that she feared for her life. The report conveniently omitted Daniel's name. Instead, it described a faceless attacker, who supposedly looked suspiciously like Daniel, and suggested that I was hiding the truth by refusing to help her identify him from among Daniel's friends. It was insidious. She wasn't just smearing my brother now. She was trying to pull me into her fantasy as a collaborator, to force me into her script. The restraining order was harassment in its purest form, a weapon meant to disrupt my life, to label me the villain. Thankfully, my lawyer was prepared. When the hearing arrived, Sarah put on a performance worthy of an award. On the stand, she trembled, her voice breaking as she spun a tale of my supposed rage. How my cold demeanor terrified her, and how my family's unified denial of her story made her believe we'd do anything to silence her. Her act was flawless, on the surface. Then came my turn. My lawyer didn't just poke holes. He demolished the entire foundation. He laid out Daniel's medical records, the hard evidence that placed him in the hospital bed the entire time. He produced the text messages Sarah had been sending around, trying to twist her story into new shapes, attempting to rally sympathy among our circle of friends. And then he unveiled the surprise: a witness. A woman who had gone to college with Sarah stepped forward. She testified about a time, years earlier, when Sarah, angry after a breakup, falsely accused her ex-boyfriend of vandalizing her car. She had even gone to the police with the accusation. The charges went nowhere, but the damage had already been done. The pattern was clear: vindictiveness dressed up as victimhood. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who had probably seen every trick in the book, looked at Sarah with unconcealed disdain. She didn't just deny the restraining order. She addressed Sarah directly, delivering a scathing rebuke from the bench, reminding her of the devastation false allegations caused to genuine victims of assault. She dismissed the case with prejudice, making it clear there would be no second chance to refile. That alone would have been enough. But then the police followed up. With Daniel's airtight alibi in hand, they formally closed the assault case. Only they didn't stop there. They opened a new one, this time with Sarah as the subject. Filing a false police report is a crime, and with the evidence from court and the witness testimony, the district attorney decided to prosecute. The storm she had conjured had turned fully back on her. Months passed, and the wheels of justice ground forward, slow but relentless. About 2 months ago, the criminal case reached its conclusion. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Sarah had no choice but to accept a plea deal. She admitted guilt, filing a false report. It was only a misdemeanor, but one that would shadow her permanently. Her sentence carried weight. 2 years of probation, a heavy fine, mandatory therapy, and 300 hours of community service. The irony was almost poetic. She would now spend her time working at a center that helped actual assault survivors. My civil suit followed. I sued her for defamation and malicious prosecution. Her parents, who had been so quick to bankroll her delusion, suddenly grasped the financial pit they were tumbling into. To stop the bleeding, they agreed to a settlement. They paid every cent of my legal expenses, and a significant additional sum. I donated that money, in Daniel's name, to a charity that supports victims of drunk driving. The same kind of reckless crime that had nearly taken his life. The settlement included one crucial condition. Sarah was bound by a strict non-disclosure agreement. She could never again write, speak, or whisper about me or my family. As for Daniel, he's walking again. The road was brutal, surgeries upon surgeries, but his body is healing. The scars are there, but they're fading. What lingers is the knowledge that he was dragged into the mud while already broken, targeted when he was least able to defend himself. That wound runs deeper than any cut to the skin. But it hasn't broken him. It hasn't broken us. Our family, tested in fire, came out stronger. Sometimes late at night, I think about Sarah's motive. That gnawing need she had to be at the center of everything, no matter the cost. And in a way, she succeeded. She did become the center of a story, just not the one she imagined. Her world now is probation check-ins, fines, counseling sessions, and the stigma of being branded a liar. Her name is tied to deceit, her reputation shredded. There was no shouting match, no elaborate revenge on my part. My response was steady, deliberate. I chose to let the truth dismantle her lies. It wasn't fury that won. It was patience, logic, and the unwavering support of my family. She tried to build a tower of accusations, stacking one falsehood on another. And all it took was the undeniable weight of truth to bring it crashing down. She once demanded that I choose her over everything else. And I did make a choice. I chose my brother. I chose my family. I chose to protect what was real and hold her accountable for what she tried to destroy. It's the one choice I will never regret.